Welcome back to the Gem Cutter's Craft. This is Justin K. Prim, and today we're going to be talking a little bit more about the process of Jambpeg cutting. So it has been about a month since I received this frap Jambpeg machine, and wow, the experience has been a bit of a whirlwind. So a couple weeks ago, I gave you guys an update video just to let you guys know how my journey was going as far as learning a brand new style of faceting. And I wanted to check back in with you again at the 1 month point because a lot of stuff has happened since the last video. So I think in the last video I had cut like 6 or 7 stones. I've cut about 2 or 3 more since the last time, so slowed down a little bit, but a little bit more focused in exactly what I'm doing and how I'm learning, and the quality of the work has been getting a lot better. So this past week we went to Paris for a couple of reasons, but the first one was the Thursday night Apéro Lapidaire. So this is a sort of an after-work drinks get-together with a bunch of gem cutters in Paris. It's Thursday night. We have come to Paris for Apéro Lapidaire. So we are going to try and meet a whole bunch of gem cutters from the Paris industry. Let's see what we see. It was so cool. We've never been there before. And basically what it is a kind of a meetup of people from all the different workshops, which kind of blew my mind because you don't really expect a bunch of cutters from all the different companies to know each other, let alone to hang out with each other after work. But once a month, or once every couple of months, I guess, they do. And it was perfectly timed for me because I got to sort of interview, in a very loose sense over drinks, interview a bunch of different cutters from different factories in Paris to see, how do you do this? How do you do that? Do all of you guys do the same thing? And it turned out that a lot of the cutters in Paris work the same way, but a couple of them don't, or a couple of the factories or workshops don't. And the techniques are pretty varied. So that was really, really cool. The next morning, I met up with Antoine, the manufacturer of the frap, and he brought me a little goodie that I want to show you guys right now. So this is the newest addition to the frap experience. So if you guys saw my video about the San Marie show, or the little excerpt from it that was the frap update from San Marie, you might have seen the prototype of this. This is now actually the working model, and I've got the very first one. So this is in French called the tabler, or we're going to call it the table adapter or the table cutter. Now this works in 2 different ways. Now the classic table cutter in France, you're doing your Jambpeg work, and you take the stick out of the mechanical case, and you can put it onto this adapter, this cutter, and you get a perfect straight up and down 90-degree angle. You've got adjustments here to tilt forwards and backwards. You've got another adjustment knob here to turn left and right. So you can really fine-tune the precise straight downness of your angle based on the way you've dopped it and on your stone. So that's how it works classically. But notice that little bar right there, that little block. So if you are in the middle of cutting your stone, which this happened to me this week, I'm cutting my 8 mains, and then my table got a little bit too small, and I want to cut the table again so that I can look at it to help me balance the mains. Now, if I just take this stick out of the case and put it on here and cut, I lose all my references, and I also don't know exactly in which orientation the table's at on here. Do I twist it to the left, twist it to the right? How is the stone oriented? And of course, we know that when we go back to polish, if the stone's not oriented the exact same way, you're going to have to do a lot of hunting to get it lined up. So here, with this simple little addition of a block, what we can do now is put the mechanical stick side against this block, and it only works in one of 8 ways. So you've got to still keep track of which side you're doing, but it's pretty easy because you've got one side with little lines. you can just do that side. And now you know every time you go and cut your table or polish your table or make it a little bit bigger, you're perfectly in the same place and you don't have to take it out of the case. And you don't have to do the old-fashioned way, which is what I've been doing this whole time, which is when you're ready to cut your table, you heat up the wax, you tilt the stone to about 45 degrees, you find it on here, and then you do that again later in the polishing. That's a lot of work. I'm very, very happy to have this in my arsenal now. So now every time I want to cut a table in the middle of the stone even, I can just jump up to that and do it, and I don't even have to mess with this thing. So it's really, really cool. I'm super psyched to have this. I've only used it in one stone so far, which is this peridot that I've been working on. So aside from that little update of the machine, my skill set has been upgraded a lot because I had 2 classes with cutters from France this past week. The first one was here in the house. Our friend Florian, who runs Tyree de Mont. Now I just have to do the corners.
Yeah, the corner, align everything.
Yeah, okay. So after I finish the corners, go back and make all the lines.
Everything.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. He gave me a 1-day course, and we went through and cut a whole oval. I learned a pretty unusual technique as far as I was concerned, or pretty unexpected, I guess. So it turns out that in France, when you want to do an oval, I thought that everyone was just hand-shaping, preforming the way that Victoria and I do, the way that Victoria was trained in Switzerland. But it turns out that actually, no, a lot of the cutters that we talked to at the Apéro Lapidaire cut the same way. They start with a rectangle, then they make it into an emerald cut, then they cut the corners in half, then they cut them in half again, then they cut them in half again, then they cut them in half again, and eventually you end up with this oval shape, sort of like +8, +4, +2, +1, all on the same hole to make it easy. And eventually you end up with this oval shape. It took me a long time to do it. I've done it twice now. And it's basically similar to the American style of faceting all of the edges of the girdle to make the oval shape. The difference is there's no meet point involved. So we're just doing that to make a balanced oval because preforming is hard, which is true. But I was really, really surprised to see that, all of these professional cutters in Paris are faceting the girdle to make their ovals and their pairs and stuff. And then in the end, in the polishing step, they hand smooth them to take all of the facets off. And they don't use the facets to line up any of the facets on the crown or the pavilion. It's only just to make the shape, which really, really surprised me. But it turned out that most of the cutters do. Only one cutter that we saw from one studio at the Apéro Lapidaire didn't go that way. He actually just did hand shaping. So it seems that both are going on, but from what we saw, the majority of people are faceting the girdles in order to make the oval shape and then smoothing it away. So that really surprised me. I was not expecting that. So I had one other class. So after the Apéro Lapidaire, a couple days later while we're still in Paris, we got to go and visit our friend Lieselot from one of the studios in Paris. And so she gave me another 1-day class, sort of very informal at the kitchen table. But so I've started cutting this pear shape, which is about, we agreed the pear mixed cut was the hardest cut that I could do with her. And I'm really, really happy it's not done yet. We didn't do any polishing. It was just a matter of cutting the facets and understanding how they do their layout, where are all the numbers on this stick. I'm getting to learn the stick a lot better now, and I'm very comfortable using both sides of it now. The ±8 with just the whole number pluses, and the ±8 with the whole and the in-between half numbers. So you can go +1, +1.5, +2, +2.5, +3, all the way up to +8. So I've gotten very good at using both of those sides thanks to the guidance that I've got from both of these 2 French cutters that gave me some training this week. What else did we speak about? Dopping. So I said in the last video that I had made this little dopping holder that would hold my dop straight up so I could use the glue. And I said, probably no matter what I learn from the French cutters next week, I'm still going to keep doing this. Okay, scrap all that because I have learned the mysteries of the wax transfer. And this is something that I've never done or never really been able to do. I guess I never really practiced it. But usually what I do, I preform the stone, I dop it with wax so that my crown is up. I cut the table, I cut the whole crown, I polish the whole crown. Then I flip the stone over. I take the stone off the dop. It's completely off, clean, no glue, no wax on it still. I flip the stone over, I put a little glue on my dop, and I table to dop, I glue it. Easy, simple, no problem. What I learned from these two cutters this past week was taking the stone completely off the dop, cleaning it, flipping it over, and putting it back into the same dop, into the wax, so that your crown that you just cut is underneath of the wax, and you can see the girdle. And I was thinking, how do I know if it's going to be straight in the wax? Because that's always been my issue. And he said, oh, you just use this thing. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, you see these two little lines in here? And I said, yeah. And he said, when you go to do your transfer, so what this block is for, I thought, I mean, I guess it has two purposes. When you're first dopping your stone and you've got it on the wax, and you've got one table preformed, you can push the stone up against this block, and it will level your table so that it's perfectly perpendicular to the dop. And I thought that was the only use of this block. I never even noticed that there's two little lines in here. But no, there's another function. When I flip the stone over and put it into the wax, and I put it in here, I can look at this line, which is only just a reference line, and there's a girdle line that we can see. So you have to make sure that when you put your stone back into the wax, you don't cover up the girdle that you've just cut. You need to be able to see it. But basically, you just line the girdle up with this line so that the girdle is straight with the line, and then you turn it 90 degrees so that you're looking the long way or whatever, and make sure it's still aligned. Just as long as you can turn the whole stone all the way around, and the girdle isn't doing this, it looks level all the way, it works. And I've done this twice. It worked perfectly. I had a really good transfer. Super, super easy. And I'm a convert now. I have taken the glue out of my setup. I've taken the acetone out of my setup. And that's just two less things that I need. And also that means, okay, well, this is difficult, right? Putting it in there and making sure it's level and doing it correctly every time. But as I said in the last video, I'm looking for difficult things here. The whole purpose of me doing this Jambpeg journey is to get my skills better than I have been able to do so far. I want to get my hand-eye coordination perfect. I want to get my eye seeing the girdle line in here perfect. I want to have my eye seeing the proportion of my length to width and my width to height ratio perfect. I'm trying to become a master. I mean, this is me kind of going into, I don't know, whatever level I can say that I'm at this point. But I'm looking for good challenges, and that was definitely a really good challenge. And for this traveling setup or whatever, this Jambpeg setup, I'm gonna just go with that. No more glue transfers, no more acetone at all on the setup. So the alcohol that's in the alcohol lamp, I can use it to spray off the stone and clean it. It also dissolves the wax. So now I only have one liquid other than my oil. I only have one liquid in my whole setup, which is great. And maybe if you've been watching the channel, you might have seen my secret agent boxing up the faceting machine into the suitcase video. So I've got this whole setup working perfectly now with the suitcase. It's just underweight, and I think taking out the acetone jar and taking out the glue means that I can put this into the suitcase and still be inside of airplane restriction level compliance. So this traveling setup thing has been super, super cool. I've traveled with it twice now. Once to do that October fair in the Jura, and then once to go to Paris last weekend. 23 kilos walking through the streets of Paris. It's still pretty heavy, but it's doable. I'd much rather get a taxi from destination to airport and airport to destination, or in this case to the train, which is what we did. But if I have to take the train or if I have to commute through the subway with this setup, it works. As long as my clothes are in a backpack, it works. So this has been a really, really fun week, or 2 weeks now, for the Jambpeg journey. I've cut a few more stones and some of the harder ones, really, the oval mix cut, the pear mix cut, and learning how to do the wax stopping better. getting my technique down thanks to the help of my friendly teachers, getting really good at just really controlling the stick. How do I hold it precisely in my fingers like this with my finger, getting really good at putting it where I need to put it in the holes, understanding how do I not window my stone, and getting some of the tips and tricks from those cutters to figure this out. Also getting a sense of what's the relationships between the holes. If I'm going to do a 3-step or a 4-step step cut, how far do I need to space them out? And just getting some references. Of course, I could just figure that out and make it up, but it's really cool to have a couple other cutters tell me, this is how I do it, this is how I was trained, because I'm essentially pulling some of that knowledge from the lineage of the French cutters, which I really haven't had access to so far. This is my first time. I mean, we went to all those factories in France and the Jura last year and interviewed all the people, which, by the way, you guys haven't even seen. Oh, we had such a journey last year that we haven't even made any videos about yet, but we've got so much video content that we've shot coming soon. Sooner or later, I guess. But this is really the first time I've had a chance to sit down with a French cutter one-on-one for hours and hours and hours and say, how do you do this? How do you do that? What do you do when you get to this point? What do you do for maintenance? How often do you take this apart and clean it? Do you actually use this thing? Some do, some don't. What's the difference between the straight one and the curved one? What's, everything. It's just been awesome. And really thankful to both Florian and Lieselette, and also to Antoine for meeting me in Paris and helping me, continuously figure out what I'm doing here. But the journey has been going really, really well, and it only will continue. So next week I head to London. It's time for the GMA conference. So if you're coming to the conference, I'll see you there. If not, then see you some other time. But while I'm in London, I'm going to go down and visit Master British gem cutter Ken Harrington, who uses the British style of Jambpeg, which means only the stick, no mechanical case, so no indexes. And I'm going to do another day-long experience with him, working on the curved tables and just checking in with him and bouncing some of these new ideas off of him now that I'm so much more immersed into the world of the Jambpeg cutting. And meanwhile, while I've been learning about the French technique and the French way of doing things, I'm simultaneously working on this epic article about the history of French gem cutting. So I'm just going through all these historical sources and reading the ideas and the stories and hearing the voices in my head of these gem cutters from the early 1900s and the 1800s and even a little bit in the 1700s. So all around, the mental, the physical, and everything else has been really, really cool, really, really satisfying. So I welcome you to keep following me on my Jambpeg journey. I'm going to keep talking about it because this is what I'm really into this year. So I think that's pretty much catching you guys up to date with where I am in my Jambpeg journey. And thank you so much for watching this video and for listening to me talk about what I'm really, really excited about now. It's been a really long time since I really, really felt schooled like a student, and this week has really done that for me. So thanks to my teachers for this week, and thank you to you guys for watching and following along on my journey. Hopefully, if I don't see you next week in London, then I'll see you in Tucson or somewhere else in the world, and if not, right here on YouTube. So check you guys later. This has been Justin K. Prim for the Jambpeg Cutters Craft. I will see you next time.